In August of 1990, George H.W. Bush declared war on the Iraqi nation because they had invaded and taken over Kuwait. Saudi Arabia needed help, so they asked the U.S. for help so that the state of Kuwait would be free from the Iraqi nation. The president began to send troops to Saudi Arabia on January 16, 1991, for the liberation of Kuwait. 250,000 soldiers were sent into Saudi Arabia to fight off Iraq. One of those soldiers was Chris Tekka, and he explains how before being deployed, the Navy requires.
And so all of us, we don't know what to expect. And so you're supposed to show up in shorts and tennis shoes and t-shirt and start for some PT, right? Physical training. And man, they ran us. I mean, run, sit up, push up, pull-ups. They had pull-up bars stationed in the most amazing places. So you'd run for 25 minutes and there's a pull-up bar, 25, go.
In Kuwait, the U.S. targeted Iraqi troops, which caused Iraq to flee from Kuwait within the time period of 100 hours. Here, Chris talks about his job in the Navy and how difficult it was.
Ships. So you have big aircraft carrier comes up alongside you, pretty much doors you. You throw lines over, you put these wires over, and you start shoveling stuff over, whether it's food, ammunition, whatever, right? We had to escort the USS Constellation from San Diego down around the Horn of South America, back up to do a shipyard replacement up in Philadelphia. And, we had a pretty big ship. It was huge, and we had very deep draft, and we go up the wave, down the wave, the whole bow of this ship went right into that wave, repeatedly for like 2 straight days. The whole ship was laid out.
Persian Gulf War, which started 20 years later in 2003, when George W. Bush Jr. declared war. Once the Iraqis were defeated by the U.S. troops, they were required to destroy all weapons of mass destruction, and Saddam Hussein would be left in charge. The Gulf War was also the foundation for the war with Afghanistan and the U.S. about terrorism. 10 years later, on September 11th of 2001, Osama bin Laden issued an attack on America because he was still furious over the American troops being stationed in Saudi Arabia. During the Gulf War attacks, Saudi Arabia is home to the most holy city of Muslims, which is Mecca. Bin Laden was so upset because with American troops stationed there, he was afraid that they would be influenced and Americanize the Muslims that resided there. In New York, the World Trade Center was destroyed as 2 airplanes crashed into both the Twin Towers, killing the pilots and passengers on the planes and thousands of people who worked in the business buildings. Soon after, also in 2001, as a result of the World Trade Center attacks, the U.S. sent troops to Afghanistan to fight. In 2003, George H.W. Bush's son, President George W. Bush, announces that America is going to invade Iraq. Again, the U.S. troops were sent into Iraq, and during this time, Derek Meyerhofer accompanied them. Derek Meyerhofer grew up in eastern Massachusetts and joined the Navy when he was 29 years old. He served in Iraq for 1 year and joined because it was a family tradition, and his father and brothers had gone in earlier years of the war. While serving in the military, there were some ups and downs being involved. At some points, it was a good thing because the troops learned to look at each other as one big family. But on the other hand, it was certain that they would never be able to fill in that emptiness of their real families back home.
Like I said, having my son born while I was gone, because we were newlyweds, and she got pregnant right before I left, and I was actually supposed to come home and leave about 2 weeks before. Coming home was probably second now, because reintegrating back to society, which goes along with PTSD, and I actually had
many of the troops came home with PTSD.
I've actually been diagnosed with it. In my case, it causes anxiety, depression. Sometimes if I get around a large group, I get very nervous. I can you just, sometimes you think about things that you went through over there, a sweat at night. It's basically, it's hard to reintegrate socially because you're trained to have your senses constantly going, and when you come home it's supposed to be a more relaxed environment, but you can't bring those emotions down.
Derek Meyerhofer now provides advice to younger soldiers and anyone else who is thinking about joining any part of the military.
You know, believe in your cause and just do the right thing. Keep your head up. Your family, you know, may be far away, but they love you, and don't listen to the news and the criticism because it's not directed to you, you know. So you just have to know that people back home still care about you and just do your job, you know.